Good morning, I'm Fiona Buining and here we are at our place in Ainslie, and the first thing we do in the morning is actually let out our chickens. So we've got 8 laying birds and they will be very keen to get out here. Here we go. And the chickens free range in our orchard. So we're in the main orchard area here. And in this main orchard area, we've got most of our fruit trees. Our block is 1,000 square metres. The great thing about growing a diversity of fruit trees is that you've always got something. So maybe everything won't do super well every year, but you've always got plenty of fruits. Today, we're going to chat about how we prepare our garden beds, in particular how we use our rabbit tractor to help us. And we'll talk a bit about what to plant and when, and we'll talk about soils and also why it's great to grow fresh food in your own garden. This is Rupert. We've got 2 rabbits, Rupert and Harold, and they are our working rabbits. And we've been using rabbits for about 8 years now, and they make a huge difference with our garden bed preparation. Hello, Rupert. So while we're doing our other work, the rabbits are here doing some work for us. So the way that works is we've got a rabbit tractor here, and the rabbit tractor, there's the other bunny there, it's the same width as our garden beds. And this garden bed here that you can see was super weedy about a week ago. So in less than a week really, they've eaten a lot of the weeds, they're eating oxalis, they're digging, they're pooping in there, and their manure is incorporated very readily into the soil and is the right carbon-nitrogen ratio for just being straight in the soil for growing. They'll be on here for a little bit longer and then we'll move them onto another bed. So once we're happy with what the rabbits have done, which is between 1 and 2 weeks on a bed, we use this tool. So this is a broad fork. It's actually, I'd say, the most useful gardening tool. So I'll show you why. So you can use this tool even if you don't have an animal tractor. This is a really good tool for garden bed preparation or to deal with weeding. So you can see you can stand on it and it goes down full depth in our soil because we've done a lot of work on our soil. You can see that loosened all those weeds. So it's a really good tool. It's also quite a workout. But the second tool that I use is this one called a Homey. And once you've used the broad fork, the weeds are quite loosened, but you can use the Homey. After we've weeded a garden bed, what we then do is we actually add things to the soil for fertility. So the things that you add, the general word for that is amendments, because to amend is to change. So we're adding amendments, which makes changes to the soil. So what we do is we actually use a pelleted chicken manure with trace elements. So there are a few brands of these around, and it's very easy. We've got this little cup which we've calibrated, which up to about here, it's 250 grams, and we add 250 grams per square metre. The other thing that we do is we actually add compost. So we make our own compost. We add a small amount of compost. If you add too much compost, you can run the risk of adding too much nitrogen to your soil. And if you add too much nitrogen, what happens with leafy crops is if I crush this leaf, it actually bounces back. It doesn't collapse. So that tells me something about the nutritional quality of the leaf. We do add a few other things to our soil because we test our soil every couple of years, so it gets a little bit complicated. But in terms of simplicity for home gardeners, like if you're adding a small amount of compost and a product like Organic Extra or Blood and Bone, they're really good amendments to add to your soil. So that's our garden bed prep in a nutshell. We are in the front yard of our place here in Ainslie. I just want to talk to you a little bit about why it's really great to grow food. So firstly, about 1/3 of carbon emissions are related to food. And a large proportion of those emissions are to do with food transport. If you start looking at where food comes from, we fly food all around the globe and all around the country. If you grow food where you live, like here we have lemons, there are really no emissions involved in transport. The other huge impact about growing your own food is you're actually growing nutrient-dense food, and it's super fresh. So here we are in the orchard. So our flock of chickens free range in the orchard from when we let them out in the morning until when they decide to go to bed at night, which is usually just on dark. They have made a significant difference here. So one of the great reasons to run chickens in an orchard is firstly pest control. The other major thing they do is they poop. And we actually don't need to add amendments to our orchards. So the soil fertility is just bang on perfect up here, and it's because of the chickens. Here are our compost bays. So we've actually got 3, and the great thing about this design is we've got these bits of wood here which prevent stuff spilling out, and for the chickens to eat material that's in the compost heap, they actually have to jump into the compost bay. So it stops them distributing the food scraps all over the yard. And they actually help the composting process because chickens are just mega scratchers. So they will just kind of jump in there and they'll scratch around. They may even do a bonus poop in there, which like increases the fertility and adds to the, but here you can see they're behaving perfectly. This is what they do. I often get asked what to plant when in Canberra. So the most important thing is to have a planting calendar that you really trust and that works in this area. So I actually use this planting calendar that was developed by Joyce Wilkie from All Sun Farm in Gundaroo. And the great thing is it's a month-by-month planting guide. So here you can see the month of November, we're in November now. On the left, it tells you what to grow seedlings of. So that means plant the seed in a little tray or container and grow it as a seedling before planting it out. And then on the right-hand side, it's got sow straight into the ground, which some people also call direct seeding. And that means you can plant the seed directly into the ground. And the other bit of advice that I love, which is from Joyce, is plant something once a month and you'll eat something from your garden all year round. Thanks for coming to look around the garden today. We're finishing off here today in my greenhouse. So as you may know, I run a business called Ainslie Urban Farm. I grow and sell microgreens direct to restaurants in Canberra. The other thing I do in here is grow seedlings. So I would highly recommend having a space to grow seedlings. It doesn't need to be a greenhouse. It can be like a cold frame, like an old window pane over a box. There's lots of really simple low-tech ways you can have a little protected area to raise seedlings. And happy growing.